The sun sets over a small, quiet diner on the edge of town, the neon sign buzzing faintly in the dimming light. It's an ordinary evening, quiet, peaceful, but the air feels thick, as though something is about to break the calm. Inside, an elderly woman, Maria, sits by the window, her hands gently folding a stack of napkins. The wear on her hands tells a lifetime of hard work, and the small, sad smile that crosses her face as she looks out the window shows a woman who's seen both joy and sorrow in her life. But tonight, Maria is alone. Her husband passed years ago, and her daughter, struggling with her own life, calls infrequently. She sighs softly, lost in thought, her eyes casting a glance toward the door, as if expecting someone. Suddenly, the low rumble of motorcycles disrupts the air. The sounds of leather jackets and roaring engines filter in through the cracked window. Shadows move across the diner as the unmistakable thud of boots on the ground grows louder. Maria stiffens, her eyes flicking nervously toward the door. Outside, a group of rough-looking bikers pull up. They step off their bikes, their glares cold and calculating. Among them, one biker, Jackson, stands out. A leader, exuding arrogance. His eyes immediately fall on Maria, a smirk curling on his lips. He begins to walk toward her. But what Jackson doesn't know is that behind him, hidden in the corner booth, two of the most dangerous men on the planet are watching. The Rock and John Cena. They exchange a quick glance, sensing the brewing trouble, but they remain still, calm, ready to act if necessary. Before we get into today's story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Now let's get started. The sound of boots scraping against the worn tiles of the diner cuts through the hum of conversation, and the tension in the room immediately shifts. Jackson, the leader of the biker gang, enters first. His leather jacket creaks with each step, and his patch-covered vest proudly displays his status. Behind him, his gang members, rough, tough, and undeniably dangerous, follow suit. There's a swagger in their movements, a sense of entitlement in the way they walk, as if the world belongs to them, and everyone else is just living in it. Jackson's eyes land on Maria as she sits, unmoving by the window. He smiles, but it's a smile that reeks of malice. His voice is low but piercing as he approaches her table, his footsteps heavy on the ground. "Well, well," Jackson sneers, leaning over her. "What do we have here? A lonely old lady, all by herself. Bet you got something worth taking." Maria looks up, startled, her hands trembling slightly as she places the napkins down on the table. Her voice is soft, but there's a calmness in her tone. She's seen worse in her time, but this is different. Jackson, however, doesn't care for her quiet resistance. "You deaf, Granny?" he taunts, his eyes flicking down to her purse on the table. "We're here to take what's ours. You got money, don't you? Hand it over." The gang laughs, a low, mocking sound that echoes in the diner, making everyone else fall silent. The other bikers eye Maria with disdain, clearly amused by their leader's theatrics. Maria hesitates, her gaze darting to the door, hoping for some kind of miracle. Her fingers move nervously towards her purse, but she knows what they want. It's not just money, it's control. "Look at that," Jackson continues, voice dripping with mock sympathy. A poor old lady, trying to keep her dignity in a world that doesn't care about her. "You should know by now, people like you don't get to keep anything. We take it all." Maria shakes her head, a tear slipping from the corner of her eye as she clutches her purse tighter. She tries to speak, but her words are drowned out by the raucous laughter of the bikers. "Hey, Jackson, leave the lady alone," one of the bikers yells, chuckling. "You want her purse or her dignity?" The gang erupts into more laughter, clearly relishing the power they wield. But Jackson isn't done yet. His hand reaches for her purse, slow and deliberate, as if savoring the moment. Maria tries to pull back, but he's too strong, grabbing the strap of the bag and yanking it from her grasp. "Now, that's better," Jackson growls, holding her purse up like a trophy. "No one tells me no. No one." Just as he's about to turn and walk away, a soft noise behind him catches his attention. A low, almost imperceptible clearing of the throat. Jackson turns around, the air suddenly shifting, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. His gaze lands on the corner booth, where the Rock and John Cena sit, their presence almost unnoticeable until now. For a moment, there's silence, thick, palpable. The biker's laughter dies down, and the room holds its breath. The two heroes, powerful and imposing, are seated with their backs straight and their eyes locked on Jackson, yet they make no move. The tension in the air grows heavy as the villains begin to realize something is wrong, but none of them dare to break the silence. The Rock sits back, his hands clasped in front of him on the table, his expression unreadable. His eyes, however, tell a different story. They burn with a calm intensity, like a predator watching its prey. John Cena, on the other hand, flexes his fingers, his jaw clenched, his gaze unwavering. Neither of them moves, but it's clear they are sizing up the situation. Jackson, annoyed at the sudden attention, steps toward the booth, his smirk turning into a sneer. "What's this, huh? You think you can just sit there and watch me?" The Rock's gaze doesn't shift. He remains still, the calm before the storm. Cena, however, cracks his knuckles lightly, his shoulders rolling as though preparing for a fight. The air vibrates with unspoken tension. "Get out of here, you two. We're handling business." Jackson snarls, his voice thick with disdain. He flicks his hand dismissively, as if they're nothing more than a nuisance. But still, neither the Rock nor Cena moves. The silence drags on, heavy and loaded with the anticipation of what's to come. The bystanders in the diner exchange nervous glances, some inching toward the door. But no one speaks out. No one dares to. "Looks like these two think they're some kind of heroes, huh?" Jackson laughs, turning to his gang. He shakes his head, amused. "I'm going to show 'em who's boss around here." One of the bikers steps forward, trying to provoke the heroes with a mocking chuckle. "Yeah? What are you going to do, Grandpa? You too old for this?" At this, the Rock shifts slightly in his seat, his hands tightening into fists just a bit. His calm demeanor is now tinged with something darker, something explosive. Cena too stands up, pushing back his chair with a soft scrape. The tension spikes, as if the room has just crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. Jackson raises an eyebrow. "You want to fight me, old man? You think you got what it takes?" Cena takes a step forward, his voice cold but confident. "You're about to find out, pal." The Rock stands up, towering over Jackson with a calm intensity that's almost terrifying. His deep voice rings out, quiet but full of authority. "You should have left her alone." Jackson sneers, clearly undeterred. "You two are nothing, just some washed-up has-beens trying to play hero. This ain't your fight." The room holds its breath. The villains stand ready, their arrogance blinding them to the true danger that now looms over them. The heroes haven't made a move yet, but it's clear to everyone in the diner that things are about to explode. The silence lingers in the air, thick and charged. Jackson, still sneering, eyes the Rock and John Cena with increasing disdain. He feels the shift in the room, the change in atmosphere, but he doesn't understand it. He's used to being the one who controls the space, the one who makes people cower. These two are no different, he thinks. "Hey, buddy," Jackson says, leaning in a little closer to the Rock. His breath reeks of cigarette smoke and arrogance. "You think you can intimidate me? What, you think you're going to put on some kind of show, huh? I told you, this is my territory." The Rock doesn't flinch. He remains as still as a mountain, his eyes locked onto Jackson's with the kind of unspoken power that only someone like him can exude. But there's no aggression in his posture, no bracing for a fight. Just a deep, calm certainty that this moment is not going the way Jackson thinks it is. "You should have walked away when you had the chance." The Rock finally says, his voice low, almost conversational, as though he's explaining something simple to a child. It's a stark contrast to the tension in the room, but his words carry the weight of authority. He's not shouting, not making a scene. He's just stating a fact. The words hit Jackson like a punch to the gut, and his face hardens with anger. For a split second, he hesitates, something inside him, realizing that maybe, just maybe, he's underestimated these two. But then that arrogance takes over again, and he laughs it off, shaking his head. "You think I'm scared of you?" Jackson sneers. "You're a joke. Both of you are. What do you think you're going to do? Pull a move from some movie and knock me out?" The rest of the gang snickers, their laughter echoing throughout the diner. They circle around, egging Jackson on, fueling his bravado. The rest of the crowd watches from a distance, unsure of what's going to happen next. Some reach for their phones, the tension palpable, but no one dares to intervene. John Cena stands tall beside the Rock, his expression unreadable, his eyes scanning the bikers with a cold intensity. He steps forward slightly, his muscles flexing under his shirt. It's a subtle shift, a movement that shows he's ready, but not yet acting. He speaks, his voice just above a whisper, but full of power. "You're right about one thing," Cena says, his eyes never leaving Jackson. "This isn't a movie, but the ending's going to be the same." Jackson's eyes narrow, his fists clenching. "What? You think you're tough? This ain't Hollywood, buddy. You're out of your league." The crowd falls deathly silent, the weight of the words hanging in the air. Maria watches from her seat, her hands trembling as she grips the edge of the table. She can see it in their eyes, the storm that's coming. The heroes have not moved. Not yet. Bah! There's something about their stillness that makes Jackson and everyone else nervous. Jackson pushes forward, his bravado now faltering just a bit as he tries to regain control of the situation. He raises his chin, speaking louder now, as if trying to assert dominance again. "Look at you two. All this muscle and what? You think you can just waltz in here and scare me?" Jackson scoffs. "I'm Jackson, the king of this town, and I don't care who you are or where you came from. I'm gonna run you out of here." The rest of the bikers egg him on, shouting encouragements like, "Yeah, and show 'em, Jackson." They're all puffing themselves up, believing they have the upper hand. The confidence in the air is like a thick cloud, but beneath it lies a dangerous undercurrent. The Rock slowly rises from his seat, his movements smooth and deliberate, his eyes never leaving Jackson. It's like a lion standing up to face an intruder in its den. John Cena steps beside him, his frame massive as he towers over Jackson. Both men are now standing, a wall of muscle and calm energy against the chaos of Jackson's gang. The air vibrates with the tension between them, the room holding its collective breath. Jackson's smirk fades, his arrogance wavering for the briefest of moments. He knows something is different now. These two are not ordinary men. But then he grins again, cocky as ever. "You really think you can take me down, huh?" Jackson says, voice dripping with mockery. "Well, come on then. Let's see what you've got. You're both just a couple of washed-up has-beens." Cena's jaw tightens, the challenge hanging in the air. His hands crack, knuckles popping as he rolls his shoulders back. "Don't say we didn't warn you," Cena says, his voice low, calm but full of steel. And just like that, the moment shifts. The room, once thick with uncertainty, is now buzzing with expectation. Everyone in the diner feels it. The fight is coming. But no one knows how it'll go or what exactly is about to unfold. Jackson steps forward, pushing his chest out, eyes filled with defiance. "All right, big man, let's see what you've got," he says, spitting on the floor and cracking his knuckles. The Rock takes a step toward him, his voice so calm it's almost unnerving. "This is your last chance. Walk away now." Jackson's eyes flash with fury, and he lunges forward, his fist aiming straight for the Rock's face. And with that, the storm breaks. The crowd gasps. Some of the bikers step back, unsure whether this is still a part of the act, but others cheer. The tension has exploded into action. Jackson has made his move. The audience is on the edge of their seats, hearts pounding, eyes glued to the unfolding chaos. This is where the story turns, the moment of no return. The air in the diner shifts like the calm before a storm. Jackson's fist comes at the Rock like a freight train, but the hero is faster, moving with a fluidity that leaves the biker's punch slicing through thin air. The Rock sidesteps effortlessly, his massive frame gliding with ease. It's almost like he's dancing, and Jackson, for the first time, looks unsure. The villain's momentum carries him forward, and before he can recover, the Rock delivers a brutal, chest-thumping slap to the back of Jackson's head. Jackson stumbles, disoriented, but quickly regains his balance, snarling. "Big mistake," Jackson roars, spinning around to face his opponent. But the Rock just grins, his demeanor calm as he cracks his neck, ready to show Jackson just how outmatched he truly is. John Cena's movements are equally fluid as he steps forward, his presence a towering force. He charges at one of the other bikers, his fist connecting with a brutal uppercut that sends the thug sprawling across the floor. The impact echoes in the diner as Cena doesn't stop for a moment, lifting his opponent up effortlessly before slamming him back down with a spine-shattering slam. "You sure you want to keep this up?" Cena's voice is cold and controlled as he moves, his eyes scanning the room for the next threat. The bikers around them begin to panic as they watch their comrades get thrown around like rag dolls, their confidence crumbling in the face of such overwhelming power. Jackson is furious, his face red with anger. He's never been shown up like this before, especially not by someone who makes it look so easy. His eyes narrow, and he charges at the Rock again, fists flying. This time, he tries to land a clean blow, aiming straight for the Rock's jaw. But once again, the Rock is too quick. He dodges with an effortless sway, his body moving like it's part of the rhythm of the fight, not just reacting to it. In a move that feels almost rehearsed, the Rock grabs Jackson by the arm, spins him around, and lifts him off the ground. Jackson's eyes widen in panic as the Rock hoists him like a rag doll, slamming him down onto the counter with a force that sends plates and glasses flying through the air. The room erupts with shocked gasps as Jackson's body crumples against the counter, the wind knocked out of him. He's gasping for breath, his body writhing in pain. But the Rock doesn't give him a chance to recover. He's on him, in a heartbeat, lifting Jackson back to his feet, only to slam him down with a powerful rock bottom onto the floor. The ground shakes with the impact, and Jackson groans, his body racked with pain. His gang watches, frozen, unsure whether to jump in or keep their distance. Meanwhile, Cena is handling the rest of the bikers with ruthless precision. He grabs one by the throat, lifting him into the air with ease, then delivers an attitude adjustment, flipping the biker over his head and slamming him into another who's charging from the side. The biker's body crumples like a rag doll, and Cena doesn't even break a sweat. "You sure you want to keep this up?" Cena growls at the remaining bikers, who are starting to look less like tough criminals and more like frightened children. Their leaders in the dirt, and they're out of their depth. Jackson finally stirs, groaning as he tries to push himself up, his eyes wild with rage. He glares at the Rock, his pride shattered, but his anger still flaring. "You're dead!" Jackson spits, struggling to his feet. He lunges for a nearby chair, swinging it wildly toward the Rock. The chair smashes into the Rock's back, but he doesn't flinch. Instead, he slowly turns around with a look of pure cold fury in his eyes. "You should have walked away," the Rock growls, his voice low and threatening as he grabs Jackson's wrist, mid-swing, effortlessly stopping the attack. With a growl, Jackson tries to break free, but the Rock's grip is iron. In one swift motion, he twists Jackson's arm behind his back and lifts him off the ground once again, holding him in place as the rest of the bikers step back, fear creeping into their eyes. "You want to try that again?" The Rock's voice is a growl, the threat hanging in the air. Jackson, his face contorted with fury and humiliation, pulls out a knife from his waistband, the blade glinting under the harsh fluorescent light of the diner. "You're not going to make me back down?" he snarls, thrusting the blade toward the Rock's side. In a blur of motion, the Rock steps back, dodging the knife with ease. With his other hand, he catches Jackson's wrist, mid-thrust, and twists it violently, forcing the knife to drop to the floor. In one fluid motion, the Rock locks Jackson's arm in a devastating submission hold, bending it in a direction it was never meant to go. Jackson howls in pain, the knife clattering uselessly on the floor. He struggles against the Rock's grip, but it's clear that he has no chance of escaping. His face is contorted in agony as he fights to break free, but it's useless. "I told you to walk away," the Rock says, his voice eerily calm as he stares down at Jackson. The crowd in the diner is completely silent now, every single eye trained on the confrontation, the tension in the air palpable. The remaining bikers are now too scared to move, frozen in place. John Cena approaches, his gaze cold as he surveys the wreckage. "You've made your choice, Jackson," he says, his voice like steel. "But it's over now." Cena moves with purpose, grabbing the last few bikers one by one and easily tossing them aside. The few that try to fight back are quickly overwhelmed, their strength nothing compared to the sheer power of the two men before them. As the last of the bikers crumples to the ground, the Rock releases his hold on Jackson, sending him crashing to the floor. Jackson lies there, gasping for breath, completely defeated. He tries to crawl away, his face twisted with rage and humiliation, but it's over. The police sirens wail in the distance, growing louder as they approach. The bikers who are still conscious scramble to escape, but it's too late. The damage has been done. The Rock and Cena stand tall, like statues of unshakable strength, watching as the remaining bikers realize their fates are sealed. They've picked the wrong fight, and now there's no way out. The victims are safe. Justice has been served, and the final piece of this chaotic scene plays out. The Rock looks down at Jackson, who is still trying to crawl away. "You should have listened," he says quietly, shaking his head. A final moment of undeniable triumph. The scene is utter chaos. The once thriving diner, now a battlefield, is filled with overturned tables and shattered glass. The remaining bikers, dazed and bruised, slowly crawl across the floor, struggling to regain their footing, but it's too late. They're completely beaten, no longer the tough, arrogant gang they once were. Their pride has been shattered, and their bodies have been humbled. Jackson, the leader of the gang, lies sprawled on the cold tile floor, clutching his arm where the Rock had forced him into submission. His face is swollen, his lips split, his pride gone. He tries to crawl away, dragging his body along the ground, but his movements are weak, desperate. The once menacing biker leader is now reduced to a broken shell of a man, groaning in pain. "Please, just let me go," Jackson pleads, his voice hoarse, filled with a mixture of pain and humiliation. "You don't know who I am. You don't know what I'm capable of. Please." He pulls himself toward the door, but his body betrays him, and he collapses again, unable to escape. "Shut it," John Cena says coldly as he steps toward him. "You had your chance to walk away. Now it's too late." Meanwhile, the rest of the gang members who had tried to flee or regroup are all lying on the ground, each one either knocked out cold or too injured to stand. The once feared bikers are nothing more than defeated criminals now, their hands raised in surrender as they look at the Rock and Cena with a new, unspoken respect. There's no fight left in them. From the windows of the diner, a sudden rush of bystanders, patrons who had been hiding behind tables, watching the scene unfold, begin to emerge. They start clapping, some cheering, others even pulling out their phones to record the aftermath. They've witnessed something extraordinary, justice delivered in the most spectacular way possible. "I don't believe what I just saw," one of the onlookers says, staring wide-eyed at the two heroes. Another chimes in. "Those guys thought they were invincible. Look at them now." Laughter echoes around the diner as the tension that had once gripped the air starts to lift, replaced by relief and admiration. The victim, the elderly woman who had been terrorized by the bikers, stands shakily. She watches the defeated gang members on the floor, a quiet tear rolling down her cheek. Her hands tremble as she wipes it away, her eyes still locked on the two towering figures standing in front of her. The Rock notices her, his expression softening as he turns toward her. "You okay?" he asks gently. The woman nods slowly, still in shock, but her face lights up with gratitude. I didn't know what to do. I thought they were going to hurt me, but you saved me. Thank you. Thank you so much," she says, her voice thick with emotion as she steps forward. The Rock crouches down to meet her eyes. "That's what we're here for. To make sure people like you don't have to face this alone." John Cena, standing behind the Rock, smiles, the corner of his mouth curling into a grin. "You've got nothing to worry about now," he reassures her, his voice steady and calming. The woman lets out a shaky breath, finally allowing herself to smile. I can't believe this is real. I'm safe. As she takes a step back, the doors to the diner suddenly swing open. The sound of sirens grows louder, growing closer with each passing second. The police arrive on the scene, rushing inside with their guns drawn. They quickly assess the situation, seeing the wreckage of the once menacing gang sprawled out on the floor, clearly defeated. One officer approaches Cena and The Rock, eyes wide with disbelief. What the hell happened here? He asks, taking in the sight of the bikers who are now surrendering and pleading for mercy. We happened, John Cena says with a half smile, his arms crossed in front of him. You're welcome. The officer doesn't seem to know how to respond, his gaze flicking between the two towering figures and the criminals at their feet. He pulls out his radio and calls for backup, requesting more officers to help with the situation. In the meantime, another officer approaches Jackson, who is still on the floor, his body racked with pain. You're under arrest, the officer says sternly as he cuffs Jackson. For assault, attempted robbery, and a whole lot more. You're done. Jackson's eyes are wild with panic as the cuffs click into place, the reality of his situation setting in. You don't know who you're messing with. I'll get you for this. He spits, his face contorting with rage. But it's clear. The fight is over, and his words mean nothing now. The rest of the gang members are cuffed and dragged outside by the police, their heads hanging low in defeat. The whole scene has shifted. The menacing criminals who thought they were untouchable have been completely dismantled, their strength stolen in an instant. The Rock and Cena stand by, watching as the police take over. The heroes content in knowing their job is done. The woman, now standing tall, gives one last look of gratitude at the two men. Thank you, she says once again, this time with more strength in her voice. I'll never forget this. John Cena smiles at her. You don't have to. Just know that you're safe now. As the police continue to clean up, the heroes share a final nod, then turn to leave. But before they do, The Rock stops, his voice carrying one last message, meant for anyone watching. Strong people protect those who can't protect themselves, he says, his voice deep and unwavering. That's the way it should always be. And with that, the two men walk out of the diner, leaving behind a world forever changed by their intervention. The sound of their footsteps fades into the background as the crowd begins to disperse, and the victim breathes easy, knowing she's free from fear. The camera lingers on the scene of the aftermath. The once menacing bikers are now under police control, their reign of terror shattered. The diner's ambiance, which had once been filled with tension, now carries a peaceful air. The sun has started to set outside, casting a soft glow on the windows. It's a reminder of how quickly the tides can turn, from danger to calm. The victim, once trembling and fearful, stands tall now, the weight of her burden lifted. She watches as the police haul the last of the gang members away, her face radiating a newfound sense of peace and relief. The Rock and Cena, though no longer in the spotlight, are still nearby. Their presence remains strong, a silent testament to the power of stepping in when justice is needed most. Cena steps forward, his tone solemn yet firm, his eyes locked on the woman. He's never one for unnecessary words, but there's something about this moment, something about what's just transpired, that compels him to speak. You know, Cena says, his voice carrying to the surrounding crowd, there's something people forget sometimes. You don't have to be big or tough to make a difference. You just have to be willing to stand up when no one else will. The Rock, standing alongside him, adds his voice, his deep, resonant tone reaching every corner of the diner. The world can be a tough place, full of people who think they can get away with anything, but it's our responsibility to make sure they don't. He looks over to the woman, his eyes softening. Nobody deserves to live in fear. Nobody deserves to feel small. The woman, who had been watching them, her hands gently clasped in front of her, suddenly smiles. A real smile. It's not the tentative smile of someone who's still unsure of their safety, but a genuine expression of gratitude and hope. "I don't know how to thank you both," she says, her voice thick with emotion. "You've given me more than just safety. You've given me hope again. I didn't think I could get away from them. I didn't think I could fight back." She pauses, her smile growing wider. "But you showed me I don't have to." The Rock nods, understanding the weight of her words. You don't need to fight alone. There's strength in standing up for what's right, and you'll never know just how much power you have until you choose to use it. Cena looks over at the diner, at the witnesses still standing nearby, and then back at the woman. Remember, courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard. You just proved that. The camera pulls back, showing the aftermath of the battle, the now quiet diner filled with people who witnessed the whole event. They are all a little more hopeful, a little more inspired, knowing that in the face of violence, someone stepped in to protect the weak. It's a stark reminder of what it means to stand for justice, to be a hero, even in the most unexpected moments. But then, as the camera zooms in on Cena and The Rock, the question lingers in the air, heavy and personal. The Rock's voice, calm but intense, asks the audience directly. "What would you do in this situation?" he asks, his gaze steady as if expecting an answer. Would you have stepped in? Would you have risked it all to stop the injustice? Or would you have walked away? Cena, who had been quietly reflecting beside him, adds, "We all have the power to make a difference. Every single one of us. The real question is, are we brave enough to act when it matters?" The message is clear. The heroism of today can be carried into tomorrow if only people choose to take a stand when it's needed. They've shown us what courage looks like, what justice feels like when someone is finally brave enough to confront it head-on. But now, it's the audience's turn to answer. The screen slowly fades to black as the final words appear. Have you ever seen injustice and wanted to step in? Have you been the one who chose to stand tall for what's right? And then, the final call to action flashes across the screen. Like, comment and subscribe for more stories of courage, justice, and heroes who stand tall for those who can't protect themselves. As the outro music plays softly in the background, the video closes, leaving the audience with a lingering sense of empowerment, and the question still hanging in the air. What would you do if you were the hero in this story?